Thank you all so much for coming today. My name is Sean Van Diver, and I have the pleasure of leading AfghanEvac. You're going to be hearing from me and several of our colleagues tonight, each of whom I'll introduce as they speak. Before we begin, I want to set a few ground rules so this is a productive and safe town hall for everyone. Then we'll get into who's in the room and the big things that I hope you'll take away from this. Somebody just deleted my script. But let's start with those ground rules. First, tonight is about general information sharing and shared understanding. This is not going to be about individual legal advice. We're not going to review or resolve personal cases here in this town hall. If you have a specific situation, we can point you to credible next steps, but we're not going to spend time with over 180 people listening on individual cases. Second, precision matters. Please do not share rumors, unverified information, or advice in the chat or during the questions. This group, the group of speakers, is going to be sharing vetted, verified information. Look, the truth is that what may have worked for one person could put someone else at risk. What may have worked in August of 2021 or leading up to January 2025 may not work now. Third, respect the different levels of risk, please. People in this room are at various different stages and in very different legal situations. Advice does not travel cleanly across all those differences. Fourth, protect your privacy and your safety. Don't share your case numbers, your full names, your dates of birth, or other sensitive personal information in the chat. Please do use the Q&A function to ask questions. We're only going to source questions from your registration and the question and answers. Fifth, we're going to be honest about what we do know and what we don't know. Silence or uncertainty is not indifference. Sometimes it's just the truth we don't know, and we'll let you know if we don't know something. Finally, we ask for your patience and respect. These are hard questions. The answers may be incomplete. We're here to support one another, not assign blame. If at any point we need to redirect the conversation to keep people safe or to keep the meeting moving along, we're going to do that, and if we're asking you to move on, please do that. Thank you for honoring these ground rules. They help everyone. Now, before we get into the policy, the process, the questions, I want to take a moment to talk about who's in this room. We're not all here for the same reason, but we are here because the same system is touching our lives in very different ways. Many of you here tonight are Afghans whose lives are directly affected by U.S. immigration policy. These are not theoretical questions for you. They're about your safety, your legal status, your spouses, your children, and whether you will be together again. You're carrying fear, exhaustion, and uncertainty that no one should have to carry for this long. Some of you are here on behalf of someone you love who's not able to be here. A spouse, a child, a parent, a sibling. You're advocating from a distance, often with very little information or competing information. And we know that separation weighs heavily. We have a lot of Americans in the room. Fully half of the participants are advocates and volunteers. Veterans who served alongside Afghan partners, advocates, sponsors, and volunteers who feel a deep sense of responsibility and moral obligation, and who are trying to find out how to help in ways that actually matter without making things worse. And we have professionals listening tonight: lawyers, service providers, policy experts, people who work inside of these systems every day and understand both how they're supposed to work and how often they fail. I also want to name those of you who are listening from third countries. You are often in the most precarious position of all, with expiring visas, limited legal protection, and impossible choices. Whether you're in Pakistan, Qatar, anywhere around the world, we see you, even if the system does not. And one of the most important things to say out loud is this: people in this room are at very different stages of the same journey. What was safe or helpful for one person may not be for another, may be dangerous or unhelpful. Advice does not travel cleanly across these situations, and rumors can cause real harm. So our commitment tonight is precision. We're going to be honest about what we know, honest about what we don't know, and careful not to offer false certainty. We're not here to give guarantees. We're here to give clarity, context, and credible guidance, and talk about the fight ahead. This is hard, but we're going to get it through it together. We are not going to pretend it's easy, and we're not going to let fear divide us. Thank you for being here. First, we're going to get started relatively quickly. You're going to hear from a lot of experts tonight. They've got the floor and have validated and verified information. I hope you'll listen closely, and we will put out the recording so others can hear. But the main things I hope you take away from this town hall are the following. Afghans must not let fear, ethnicity, or rumor divide the community. Stephen Miller and the Trump administration do not respect or know your history or heritage. You must stick together and act on validated information only. Getting a qualified lawyer early matters more than almost anything else. Full stop. Get a lawyer. Wakil is the word in Dari and Pashto. Get a lawyer. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. We heard from you that getting a lawyer was hard, and we're going to talk through that. Precision, patience, and documentation matter. You cannot hope for the best. Hope is not a strategy. There is no secret back door, and if someone is telling you there is, they are lying to you, and they are probably trying to scam you. This is survivable. We know it's not going to be easy, but we're going to get through this. To get us started, I thought it would be useful if we could have one of our friends and colleagues from AfghanEvac, Sweta Azimi, talk about her experience for a few minutes.
Thank you, Sean. Hi, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sweta Azimi. Today, I'm here to speak about myself and the family reunification that I have been waiting for 5 years, and also speaking on behalf of Afghan parents that is either waiting in the United States for this reunification or waiting inside Afghanistan or maybe in third country. It has been waiting for 5 years. It's not easy. Like waking up every morning with a hope and sleeping every night with unanswered question that what will happen tomorrow. It's the 5 years of continuing like missing birthdays, missing hugs, missing first days of school, missing moments that no parents should have experienced this. And family reunification is not a policy issue for us. It's like not a file number. It's not case status. It is like a child is asking when I will see you again. And it's the parents' question like when I will be hugging again. There was times that kids get sick and parents here like me, I experienced that personally, that is like always worried and cried over the phone, hugging them from the phone. So it's like the parent holding the phone instead of holding their child when they're sick or when they have tough times. It's the time is stolen that never ever should be replaced with anything. 5 years, like my life has been divided in two parts where when I have to survive and the other part where my family and my kids has to wait. It's not only about my children, it's like another separation from the family, like they take care of the children's there, like my parents. My mom was already separated from their own her own kids for almost a year because they were waiting in Pakistan. It's not one family separation, it's actually causing two family separation, these delays. So every moment is like kind of strange as a shadow of like by absence, and yet like many others, I am told to be patient. It it is like it's not like I'm not patient with this, but this policy shouldn't be asking for our patience, especially as parents. It has a very high cost, and it costs childhood, it costs mental health, and it costs dignity of not only parents but childs and all Afghans. Family reunification is a human right, and it's a very basic human right that we all Afghans deserve this. It's about safety, it's about healing, it's about stability. And when families are keep apart, like trauma does not pause. It's like multiplies for children, for family, for grandparents, and for their future. And parents like me carry the guilt like that does not deserve. And it's like communities that's lose the foundation, helping people, integration, contribute, and thrive towards their future. Today, despite everything, we're still here, still hopeful, still believing that compassion can be stronger than bureaucracy, and humanity is stronger than fear. So today, I'm here with my scars for the past 5 years. Some of colleagues like Sean and most of our colleagues is aware that it's not, I knock every door. It's not about like family says, oh, maybe you didn't reach out, maybe you didn't did this job better, or you didn't seek legal information. But how about me? I never left even a door to be unknocked. So still, it's like, and I'm in a situation of like we don't know what will happen. So today I speak to our people, to mothers, to fathers that are listening me here. Family reunification is not about charity; it's about justice. It's about choosing humanity. And I'm here today because wedding should end. Not just for me, but for all families still separated. It's still invisible, and still hoping that someone will finally listen. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sweeta. I really appreciate you opening us up like that. Family reunification is the number one thing that we heard about in the registration form. Uh, it is awful. Uh, there are at least 15,000 individuals awaiting reunification, and the Biden administration only reunified about 2,500 of them. Let's. I'm going to open us up with some big picture policy ideas, what we're seeing happen here at home and abroad.
Hey, Sean,
Um,
before you do that, there's a note in the chat that says we've lost the DAR
I know.
interpreter.
I saw.
Oh,
He
okay. Just want to make.
stopped translating for because of what the message was. We're good. He's good. Um, okay. Uh, we're going to start with the harsh reality about those who are still waiting. There are just no cases being processed right now. None whatsoever. There's no secret backdoor. Refugee cases, P1, P2. Refugee cases are P1 and P2. Those have all stopped. SIV cases has all stopped processing. They've stopped processing the chief of mission approvals. There's no IV cases being processed. Um, there's just no exceptions for Afghans. Uh, look, the truth is that there's only one person can that can restart these, right? Family reunification cases are stopped, fiance cases aren't processing, diversity visas aren't processing, nothing. I get a lot of questions like, but what about this? And there's just no cases processing right now. And that's due to a series of executive orders, not any laws. Until the president rescinds some of those executive orders, or Congress passes some laws that help Afghans, or the courts say that what the president has done to this community is illegal, nothing is going to change. And look, we know uh, that the administration has used the shooting that happened in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago, the tragic shooting where we saw two National Guardsmen gunned down uh, as a cudgel. We know that he didn't do that because he was Afghan. We know that that's not indicative of the larger Afghan population. In fact, Republican members of Congress has said as much. Um, but look, hope is not lost. Congress and the courts are still in play, and we hope to see some success. We're going to save some time at the end for what comes next. Um, but that's it overseas, right? There's still 800 people at CAS overseas, refugee cases. I'm going to run a poll right now, actually, to sort of try to gather who's in the room. That reminded me that they were included there. Um, there are folks in Pakistan, in 90 countries around the world. There's about 265,000 Afghans uh, in Afghanistan and 90 countries around the world who are somewhere in the Enduring Welcome pipeline and on their way here, and it all got shut down. We haven't seen a lot of positive movement on that. Here at home, we've seen DHS treat Afghans very poorly. In fact, many got notices to check in on Christmas Day and on New Year's Day. Now, to date, we haven't heard any reports of any Afghans being detained, but many, in fact, all, I think, um, received GPS monitors. We know many of our friends have been detained in immigration court, at their homes, and elsewhere. We're seeing that those who cross the southern border are most likely to be impacted with or without CBP-1. Um, but what we are seeing is that legal action is working. I'm going to stop it there for right now, and I'm going to turn it over to Heather Hogan, who is the Policy and Practice Counsel for the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Heather?
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. So yes, I'm Policy and Practice Counsel with the American Immigration Lawyers Association. I can briefly, sorry, you'll have to excuse me. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm like a little bit hoarse. So ALA is a voluntary nonprofit bar association. So it's a great resource to try to find a lawyer, and also ALA publishes resources about ongoing policy changes and practice resources for attorneys. Some of these things are available only to members, some are available to the public. Um, so I just wanted to sort of be clear about like what ALA is and what ALA does. ALA does not represent clients on an individual basis. Just sort of putting that out there. So I'm on the government relations team, and what we do is, we support our member attorneys and help people to troubleshoot all of these ongoing policy changes and like get strategies out to their fellow attorneys about how to combat what's happening in their cases. Um, I also work with we work with Congress on pending or proposed legislation, and ALA at times endorses pieces of legislation if if we agree with it. If not, we will provide feedback about how we think it might be improved. But ALA does advocate with Congress for like fair and reasonable immigration legislation. So we kind of yeah, it sort of runs the gamut, I guess. So I guess on the sort of one initial issue we were discussing among the presenters today was finding legal representation. So okay, so sorry, there I see a question about ALA assisting clients. So yeah, so ALA does not represent clients ourselves. We are a bar association specifically for immigration attorneys. And our attorneys who are members of ALA, they represent clients. So ALA is a good place to find an immigration attorney. There's a find a lawyer feature. And I believe in the USA Hello documents that will be discussed a little bit later. There's a link to the to this like find a lawyer feature. So that does actually have in the drop down for the Find a Lawyer feature, there is Afghan assistance specifically, and there are 132 attorneys who have mentioned that they're like open to Afghan assistance. So that's one way to try to find an attorney. Um, on that topic, other than like going to ALA's website, you can also, if you don't necessarily search by Afghan assistance, you can search by like, your town, your state, you can search by your community. But one thing we'd also discussed today was in this moment where a lot of people are potentially going to be in different types of proceedings they weren't expecting, like having their cases re-reviewed and things. There's going to be a lot of demand for attorneys. And so I think that one other thing to do is to try to get creative and do so within your community. So a lot of like medium and large legal firms, they often like mandate pro bono hours. So if you're looking for a pro bono attorney or a low cost attorney, contact firms in your community, even if it seems like one of those like big law firms that doesn't do immigration work. They often will have pro bono like a coordinator who connects clients with the attorneys in their firm. And then they have a lot of resources to be able to represent cases. Additionally, there are law schools that have legal clinics where they have a professor who's an expert, and then they work with student attorneys. So I did that in law school as an immigration as a what's the word? Aspiring immigration attorney. So contact law schools and see if they are taking if they're taking cases. So those are just some initial ideas, but definitely it's best to try to find representation. If you think there's any reason that you might need an attorney, do it earlier rather than later. So, if you get a notice asking you to appear in an ICE office, talk to an attorney, and it's better to have one beforehand. Um, so let's see. So that's on the representation front. We know that there's a lot of demand and there's not enough supply necessarily, especially for low pro bono and low cost, but it's out there. You can also contact state bar associations because the state bar, that's who licenses attorneys in each state. And the state bar often does work with like legal aid or different types of organizations that can offer low cost or free legal representation. So it will require some, it requires some work. Unfortunately, there isn't just an easy place to go to get attorneys, but they're out there. And even attorneys who are not necessarily immigration attorneys are still using their resources to represent immigration clients, specifically Afghans. Um, Okay, so I wanted to also address some of what our ALA member attorneys are reporting that they're seeing in their cases right now. I cover asylum and refugee issues specifically, so I'll mention that initially. So some of the things we're seeing are that in affirmative asylum cases, some cases are being canceled because there is an alleged prior expedited removal order. And this is happening in cases where people were paroled in. So this shouldn't be the case, but it's happening. People are having their cases canceled and they're being told that they are going to get an NTA to appear in immigration court because the asylum office doesn't have jurisdiction. In some of these cases, when the attorneys look into the case, there is no prior expedited removal order, and we're not sure why it happened. It was a mistake or something else. But if you get a notice like this and you have an affirmative asylum case, it's important to try to speak to a lawyer about it and take quick action on it. Call the asylum office, email them, go in person to let them know you don't have a prior expedited removal order. Um, Additionally, and I don't mean to frighten people, but there are arrests occurring at asylum interviews, which used to be really rare. I am a former asylum officer and a supervisor and worked for the program for like 9 years, so I can attest to this. That used to be really rare, but now more often people are being arrested at asylum interviews. And the attorneys we speak to, they can't always tell patterns or why. It happens in some cases and not others, some asylum offices and not others. Um, but we can say that there is a higher risk for people with criminal convictions or pending criminal charges, but that's not always the case. Sometimes people are detained who don't have any criminal issues. And then on immigration court cases, so where there are defensive asylum applications, which is the term for asylum applications in court, the biggest issue attorneys are reporting is something called pretermission, which is where um, the government attorney is asking to have the case essentially canceled and have the person ordered removed without having a hearing. And there are a lot of different reasons that they're citing for this. Some are like administrative issues with the application, saying it wasn't filled out properly. Other issues are these cooperative agreements with third countries and saying that the person could go to one of these third countries to apply for asylum. That's probably like the biggest issue in immigration court asylum cases right now. And typically attorneys do their best to object when the government attorney asks for this to happen, asks for a case to be pre-termitted. But it's very widespread right now. So there's an organization, and I can share this resource with Sean to give to you all, called the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies, which is in California. And it has a great library of resources and like template motions. For the advocates and attorneys here today, they have excellent resources on responding to this, and they've been updating this in real time as we've been seeing more and more of these pre-term missions. So I know there are a lot of other questions on different types of cases other than asylum and refugee cases. So I can stop for now, and then we can kind of discuss those as we move on. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Very helpful. Folks, if you have questions for Heather, put it into the Q&A. We turned off the chat function. I didn't want to have two places where chats were coming in. Next up, we're going to have Brian McGoldrick, an attorney from the AfghanEvac team. I want Brian to have a talk about habeas and his other observations on the ground. Brian, why don't you tell us what's going on in your world?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. For the last few months, my practice has pretty much focused on trying to get people out of detention once they are grabbed and detained. I do this through a habeas corpus petition filed in district court. And basically, the allegation is that when ICE detains someone at a hearing or at an ICE check-in, or lately in San Diego, it's been when they go actually to ISAP to check in for their alternative to detention requirements. A lot of times they're taken in the back room with no one around, because we have a pretty large volunteer presence here that's really watching what ICE does, and no one's allowed back there, no one's allowed in that building. And so they're able to detain people pretty regularly there with no one observing what's happening. And most of my clients are out at Otay Mesa. And the fact is that the way that ICE detains people is almost always a violation of their due process rights. And it's usually a violation of their own regulations, which makes it a violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. And fortunately, most of the judges here in the Southern District and pretty much in the Central District, pretty much through California, most of the judges agree that what ICE is doing violates due process and the Administrative Procedures Act. So it's gotten to the point now where I file a habeas petition, and most of the judges are just giving a very short scheduling order. I just filed one today that they got a 3-day. The government has to respond in 3 days. I have 3 days after that, and then they're just going to rule. They don't even set these for hearings anymore. They or if they do set them for hearings, as soon as I file my it's called the traverse to the return. As soon as I file my answer to the government's objections, the judge will just issue the grant of habeas and cancel their own scheduling order and then close the case. So, there is relief available if you're detained. The problem is there aren't a lot of people that do these habeas petitions. They take a lot of time. It's not something that I can just spit out in 10 minutes. And because there's not a whole lot of people doing them, there's a long waiting list. So I currently have about 25 people just waiting for me to be able to interview them and then file their habeas petition for them. But it's working very well here in California. And unfortunately, go ahead.
Country?
What was that?
Is it working well in other parts of the country too?
I believe so, but I don't really close attention to what's happening in other jurisdictions because I'm not allowed to practice in those jurisdictions. So I pretty much know what's happening here in California.
Right.
There has been one development here in the Ninth Circuit. The case called Maldonado Bautista has created a class of people So people that are iwi that enter without inspection in the Ninth Circuit are not subject to mandatory detention, and are supposed to get bond hearings. But as soon as that was issued, it apparently DHS sent a memo out to the immigration judges in the Ninth Circuit telling them to not pay attention to the district court order. So some judges are recognizing Maldonado Bautista, some are not. The ones that are not probably are more assured that they get to keep their job. And the government attorneys on the district court level, the AUSAs, are now just filing responses to the habeas petition saying that because of Maldonado Bautista, the appropriate solution to this petition is a bond, and they don't. That's what should happen, and end of story. So some of the judges are doing that. So it's a bit more of a fight for me to get them to not order a bond, but release them. Because I believe that if somebody's arrested and detained illegally, the remedy is not to make them pay a ransom to get out, which is really what these bond hearings are, right? You have to figure out how much the ransom's going to be, and then you pay the ransom and you get out. So if the judges actually read my response before they act, then they're granting release. If they're just ordering a bond, then we have to go to a bond hearing.
Thank you. All right, Brian, thank you so much for that. We're going to move on next to somebody who every single person here should know. The work that they do is heroic. USA Hello has just visit their resource. You can type in their website, you can type in your address, and you can find the resources that are available local to you. They also have resources specific to Afghans. I'm going to stop stealing her thunder and turn it over to Sarah Ivory.
Great. Thank you so much. As Sean said, my name is Sarah Ivory, and I'm the Executive Director of USA Hello. We are a nonprofit organization that focuses on getting immigrants in the United States good information in the languages they need, in the formats they can understand in order to navigate policies and systems. And I want to share some information today that we have that I think is helpful to the Afghan community. But before I jump in, I just want to acknowledge that we are in really extraordinary times. And, the sheer volume and pace of change, policy change, enforcement change, the feeling that the rules just keep moving underneath our feet is intended to make us feel confused. It's intended to create an atmosphere of fear. If we're feeling overwhelmed, that's the point. And I think I want to just extend my just heartfelt feelings to those that are directly impacted by this, along with all of you on the line today that are advocates. I think the hope is that we will all give up, and I feel really heartened to be on this call today amongst I think 500 plus people who are very much not giving up. So I just want to say we are here by you during this difficult time. And I know that information is just part of the puzzle here, especially when that information is not good news. But I do think it's a really important part of how we protect ourselves. So before I share my screen, I just want to say our organization provides an online information hub. We also have a free classroom and a resource app, but I'm going to talk about the legal information today. We are not a legal service provider. We do work with lawyers and policy experts to vet everything we put out, but our focus is on getting people information they need to make informed decisions and find the right help. We really prioritize accessibility, which means we invest a ton in high quality translations and making sure everything's accessible on mobile and getting things out to people where they are. And we kind of cover a wide range of topics, but what I'm going to share today is our immigration guide, which is really meant to try to bring our policy information into one place. And I'm going to share my screen here. Now, hopefully everyone can see it. This is the desktop version. I'll also share what it looks like on mobile. But when you come, if it's your first time, you'll get a pop-up asking you to choose your language. You can always choose here. Almost all of our resources in Dari are in Dari, and then our Afghan-specific resources are also in Pashto. You have the option to filter by immigration status, but this guide keeps the newest information at the top. You'll see this page, which is updated weekly and often multiple times a week with highlighting changes in policy and laws. We have resources on the travel ban, Afghan statuses. You'll see here an opportunity to sign up for emails or text messages. We do a weekly newsletter that does a run through of the policy updates as well. There's a lot of information here. What I'm going to show you today, first is our policy change page. This has new information highlighted. It's dense. There have been, I think, last time I checked, 571 immigration policy actions taken by this administration since they came into office in January. We try really hard to make it simple, but it's a lot of information. So we try to highlight what's new. We have a page that's specifically for Afghans in the US. Actually, I have a whole hub, but we're really focusing on the policy updates. And I saw several questions in the chat about what's happening for different statuses. This has an overview, and the short update is nothing's happening for any status. Everything is on hold for the most part. That does not mean you shouldn't continue to work with finding legal help, getting on wait lists. Absolutely, you should be doing that. But visa processing is on hold, the resettlement program is on hold, asylum decisions are on hold, and this kind of has an overview. Again, like I said, you can choose your language, you can view it in Dari, you can also view it on mobile, you can share it easily. I'm going to go back to English here. We have an updated resource that came out about a week ago on the travel ban and what that means. I know there have been some changes even since then. One of the resources that Heather called out is a page on how to find free immigration lawyers and low-cost legal help in the United States. That's both attorneys and accredited representatives. And I know that the need is much larger than the availability, but I think, as we mentioned, you really want to seek out as many sources as you can. You can get on multiple wait lists. I think looking in your local area, looking at law schools, looking at social service providers, even those that are not law firms, many social service providers also have attorneys on staff or have legal representatives. This page goes through what you can expect, how you can figure out who to trust, and then here's a link to the AILA directory as well as several other directories. I think one of the things that's incredibly important in finding legal help is making sure that it's legal help that's there to help you. I'll talk a little bit about what to look out for and red flags there, but there are a lot of people looking to exploit the current situation, people who are making false promises, exploiting people for lots of money. I think it's, I wish that were not the case, but it's a time to be extremely vigilant. And the last specific resource I'll call out is this tips to avoid common immigration scams and fraud. That gets to the same thing I was just talking about. This will go through a whole list of different websites, different scam emails. I think the main thing I'd say is if anyone is promising you an outcome, they're lying and shouldn't be trusted. Nobody knows the outcome right now. No good attorney or legal representative will promise you they could get you something. Anyone who's asking for information without having it that you don't have a contract with should not be trusted. Anyone who's telling you something that feels too good to be true, you should be double checking. There's a whole bunch there more on that, but I think outside of legal scams, another thing I wanted to just touch base on, and this is really important to us as an organization, is being able to navigate the just flood of misinformation and disinformation. I think in reading some of the questions coming up prior to this, it's clear that people are really concerned about who to trust. And I wish I could say that's not a valid fear, but it is. It is a really valid fear right now. There are so many pieces of misinformation, much of it completely unintentional. People sharing things that they think are true, or sharing rumors that they've heard. Is not all people out there trying to scam you. But I do think it's really important that we slow down how we're taking in information, where we're getting in information, and that we're taking a pause before acting, no matter what it is. Even if that action is just sharing it with someone else, that we're pausing, we're going back to trusted sources, which could be our site, it could be other nonprofits, particularly legal organizations or those specializing in supporting Afghan communities. Typically, I'd say government websites. I don't trust all the information on government websites right now, but I think it's an important backstop. I think it's really important that we're not acting immediately in response to social media, even and maybe especially social media coming out of the administration. What is said is different than what is true in reality. And so I think, again, I would urge people to try to slow down. It's very, very difficult in a news cycle that feels just relentless right now. But I would really ask that folks wait to share, ask good questions, don't give up on finding legal help, and looking to trusted sources. I will share the information we have, including the specific websites that I shared here, and happy to answer more questions in the chat. The last thing I want to call out before I pass it on is just really being aware of the time that we're in and how fast information is changing. We see AI generated videos being shared, not just by like your friends and neighbors, but by the government itself. I think we have to be really careful about what we're looking at, especially if it's creating fear, it's on purpose. So I think there have been a lot of extremely successful efforts to divide immigrant communities within themselves, to create rifts, to kind of turn blame inward. And I think it's really essential that we don't fall victim to that we stay strong as a community of people that support immigrants of all backgrounds and support one another. So thank you again for the time today, and thank you, Sean, for organizing this. And I'll share links to some of those resources. Again, you can access on mobile, and you can choose your language to get those in Dari or Pashto.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Um, Everything you said was so important. Folks, please, please, please go to usahello.org. It has been one of the most useful resources. Like many of you who are on this call, I served in the Navy for a long time. I served in the military. In the military, we have something called battle buddies. So I sort of drew on that when we started seeing ICE snatch people up, our wartime allies. In fact, inspired by one of Brian's clients, Syed, um, a viral video showed ICE taking one of our allies, violating his due process. And I called up my friend Dr. Kyle Hunter, who's been my battle buddy across myriad issues. We've been advocating as veterans together for a long time. And I'm really grateful that she's here today to talk a little bit about what Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America has been doing and what AfghanEvac and Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America have been doing together. Kai?
Right. Sean, thank you so much. And thank you again for always being my battle buddy in so many different topics. As Sean mentioned, I'm CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, and wanted to just briefly share a few things that we have going on. And for those on this call who might be veterans, or even folks who aren't but are feeling sort of like, what can I do? Offer some potential ways to help and ways to engage. So first and foremost, why are we as a veterans organization here and talking about this? And quite frankly, it's because for decades, it has been a top policy priority of our membership that we keep our promise to our wartime allies. And right now, when we are seeing our Afghan allies under direct attack, whether that is being snatched up and detained in immigration hearings, having their pathways cut off, being cut in limbo in the middle of processes that were designed so that we fulfilled the promise of those who stood shoulder to shoulder with us and in many times saved our lives. We know that that is both morally wrong, that that goes against the values that we raised our right hands for, and presents a huge national security risk that we see right now. And so with that, as Sean mentioned, we formed the Battle Buddies program right away, coming after seeing what had happened to Saeed. And so the Battle Buddies program, for those, and Sean, if you can stick the link in the that would be great. For those of you that are veterans, and I've seen a little bit in the chat, the importance of showing up and showing up to these hearings and being a force of solidarity and being a true battle buddy and how important that is. This is an opportunity for veterans to have the back of all of you that had our back for so long. And Sean and I have done this together. I have done this with other members of our group, and we go to hearings, and we are a sign of support for those that are going through the immigration process right now. And it is important for several reasons. One, we have started to see that veterans showing up visibly as veterans in Veterans Year gives ICE a little bit of pause if they are going to think about snatching somebody up, right? There is power in showing that those who raise their right hand continue to fulfill our promises to those that we served alongside. It also is an incredibly important sign of support to those going through the process. This is often harrowing, it is confusing, it is scary in many ways that we felt when we were downrange, harrowed, confused, scared, and we had our interpreters who had our back. This is our opportunity to stand with our allies and have your all's back throughout the process, and maybe ease that process to know that there's somebody who is standing beside you at all times. And so that is one way in which we can continue to to show up and show support and do something at a time when so often we feel helpless. One of our earlier speakers was talking about how this is a moment where they're trying to drive drive division in too many ways. Additionally, we're continuing to advocate for policy change and for ensuring that the Senate and the House keep our promises to our Afghan allies and actually codify a lot of these pathways into law. And so I just shared in the chat as well 2 videos that IAVA recently produced in partnership with the Chamberlain Network that highlight many of our members who worked alongside Afghan interpreters, but also one who was an interpreter, came here in 2014, went on and joined the Marine Corps, and discussed why it is so important that we continue to support this and call for change. And so as well, I put the videos in there. We really encourage you to share them and use them as a means to educate people who are not on this call, right? People who might not understand the importance both to our moral fiber as a country, but also to our national security of ensuring that we continue to honor our promise. And so I want to be respectful of time. I know I will be the odd one here and say the pilot with a PhD will shut her mouth, which rarely ever happens, as Sean knows. But really looking forward to answering any questions. Please join us as a battle buddy. Please share the word on with these videos to really continue to push the House and the Senate to take action so that, as Sean had mentioned, so much of this is happening by executive order right now. What we actually need is statutory change to ensure that both our allies now and in the future are protected.
Thank you so much, Kai. Very, very helpful. Okay, folks, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about what you can do. And then we'll get into the questions. And it sounds like the speakers can all stay So if we don't get to all the questions right by the top of the hour, then we're still good. Look, I want to spend a few moments on a question we know is coming because it matters, because the answer is different depending on who you are. Many of you have been asking in the registration, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? You just heard about battle buddies. This question comes from a good place. Clarity matters so much here because Americans and Afghans have different roles, different risks, and different forms of power. Mixing those up unintentionally can cause some harm, right? So I'm going to break it into two parts. What Americans, people who look like me, who have durable status, who are able to be a little bit more confrontational, and other non-Afghan allies can do. And then we're going to talk about what Afghans can do safely and productively without putting themselves at too much risk. If you are a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, you have leverage that our Afghan allies and other immigrant populations do not. You can use it, and it's so important that you do. We have to apply pressure where it actually matters. Elected officials respond to constituents, not hashtags, right? They don't have their notifications turned on social media. It's helpful to build power around folks, but hold on, I lost my place. But they're not going to respond directly to that. So what you can do is you can call your members of Congress. You can ask specifically about Afghan family reunification, SIV processing, refugee admissions, all of these things, EADs, and all of the different temporary statuses, what's happening in the courts, etc. You can also talk to your local and state representatives. Demand that they push their members of Congress. If you want templates or talking points, AfghanEvac can provide them. Don't freestyle this. Precision matters. Getting it right matters because if your voice is the voice that they listen to, you can have a global impact, and we want to make sure that it's having the impact that we need. Demand written answers from these folks, not generic statements, right? I just sent an email to every office on the Hill that said, we've heard enough of your bullshit. We've heard that you say you stand with Afghans, but you haven't done anything. The Afghan Adjustment Act isn't passed. The Enduring Welcome Act isn't passed. We don't have enough visas for Afghans. We don't have this. We don't have that. There are people stuck at CAS. Refugees can't move. Do something. You can fund the work that's still happening. The work costs money, right? Lawyers, caseworkers, data systems, emergency support are not free. Donate if you can. Donate to AfghanEvac. We are trying to turn into a full paid organization, not just volunteers. Fundraise if you cannot donate. Support organizations with a track record of success, not just pop-up efforts. This is not charity, it's infrastructure. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Correct misinformation, right? You can make sure that when you hear bad information, it's sometimes loud, it's sometimes very confident. You can correct it calmly, share verified sources, share Sarah's website, usahello.org, share Ayla, share AfghanEvac, litany of other organizations connected to those groups, any of the resettlement organizations. Don't speculate publicly about legal outcomes. When in doubt, say less, not more, which may be surprising coming from me. Show up. You heard from Dr. Hunter earlier. Show up. Sign up to volunteer with your local resettlement agency or join AfghanEvac and IAVA to become a battle buddy. Battle buddies is an extraordinary, there's so much community there. James and I, who you haven't met, but he's operating the back end here, spent some time down at the San Diego courthouse informing ICE what we thought about their masking up and standing with our wartime allies. However you show up, though, you're responsible for your behavior, right? We have to make sure to cause no harm. Good intentions do not excuse bad execution. So show up gentle unless you have the space to be less gentle. Now, let's talk about what Afghans can do. I'm going to speak directly to Afghans in this space and around the country. Your role is not to fix this system. You didn't break this, but there are things that you can do that matter, and we want to be clear about them. Number one, protect yourself first. Don't take any unnecessary risks. Don't rely on rumors or WhatsApp chains. Don't give personal documents to unverified individuals. Don't act on fear. Staying safe is not giving up. It's staying in the fight. Make sure you have a lawyer. This sounds boring, but it's important that you stay documented and stay organized. Keep copies of every document. Save your case numbers, emails, and screenshots. Write down timelines while you still remember them. Make sure that you have a plan if you're going to go into immigration court or an ICE check-in or something like that. Somebody knows where you're at and when you're expected back. When windows open, people who are ready move first. Use trusted information channels. I want to bring Sarah back in briefly. Sarah, can you restate where Afghans can go for accurate information and updates?
You can always go to our website, usahello.org. If you want to add /safety, you'll get to our immigration hub that has our explainers and also links out to other great resources from our advocates in the field as well. So that's usahello.org.
Thank you. Now, folks, I want you to please hear this so clearly. For everybody listening on the call, there is no secret list. There's no shortcut. There's no guaranteed pathway. Anyone, like Sarah said earlier, who's telling you otherwise is lying to you. They're not telling you the truth. If that changes, AfghanEvac and AILA and all of these different organizations are all committed to making sure that this is a fair and equitable process. You will know when things open. We will be very noisy about it. You are not required to tell your story, but when you choose to, it has a lot of power. Stories move policymakers when statistics fail. Stories help Americans understand what delay really means. Stories build the case for change. So if you want help sharing safely, AfghanEvac can help you. You can go, I'm going to put the website in here now. You can go to afghanevac.org/press-info. Tell a little bit of your story. We share that with reporters who commit to anonymity, and they'll reach out to you. Please do that. It's a very useful resource, and we can help make sure that you stay anonymous. Number 5, isolation helps systems fail quietly. This is the reason why AfghanEvac did not think that we could work within the system once they started shutting everything down, and we started being very noisy, even though some people thought that that wasn't a good idea. You must stay connected to your community. Stay in touch with trusted networks. Ask for help when you need it. Offer help when you can, even if it's just information or translation. Survival is not an individual sport. I want to say this plainly because it matters. Helping does not mean fixing everything. Helping does not mean risking your safety. Helping does not mean burning yourself out. For Americans and non-Afghan allies, help looks like pressure, persistence, and resources for Afghans, other immigrant communities, and those helping. For Afghans, help looks like safety, readiness, connection, and reminding us why this matters. Both are necessary. Neither are optional. We're going to roll into some questions. We're going to answer the questions from the Q&A. If we didn't answer your question that you asked in the registration, please put it into the Q&A. We're going to stay here till we answer all of those questions. All right, folks. Before we close, I want to take a moment to reflect on what we've talked about tonight. We covered a lot. We answered a lot of questions. We didn't have answers for a lot of stuff. Not all of it was easy to hear. Don't travel. Some of the answers are incomplete. Some of the pathways are slow or stopped. And all of the uncertainty is real. It would be disrespectful to you and to everybody that works in this to pretend otherwise. But I want to say this so clearly. You're not wrong to be frustrated. You're not weak for feeling tired. You're not alone in this, whether you're an Afghan or an advocate. What we tried to do tonight is not solve everything, because no single meeting can. What we've tried to do is replace fear with information, isolation with community, and rumor with reality. For Afghans who are waiting inside the United States and third countries, or separated from family, your perseverance matters so much. Don't give Stephen Miller and the federal government what they want. Don't show them that you're tired or you're angry. Stay tough. Staying safe, staying documented, and staying connected is not passive. It is how people survive long periods of uncertainty. You've already been doing that for so long. For Americans and other allies, your role matters here. Pressure, persistence, and resources change outcomes over time, even when it doesn't feel immediate. Showing up responsibly is not loud, but it's powerful. And look, it's incumbent on us, especially the veterans in this crowd. I don't want to hear any fucking excuses. If you were mad in August of 2021 And if you're mad now, have the courage to put yourself out there. We can do it. They can't mess with us. ICE can't do anything to us beyond harass us for a little bit. Right? I'll be right there with you, talking shit to them. We need to be doing everything that we can do because it's about our national honor. For everyone here, one of the most important things that we can do is refuse to turn on one another. Division, misinformation, and despair are how systems fail quietly. Community is how people endure long enough to see change. Afghans, Americans, everyone, don't look around and see who you can fight next unless it's somebody that's causing harm to our Afghan allies. We need to stick together. Thank you for trusting us with your time. We're going to continue to push. We're going to continue to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And we'll continue to show up because walking away is not an option. Thank you for trusting us with your time, your questions, and your stories. Stay connected. Take care of yourselves and each other. We're not done. We'll see you on the other side, folks.